What's going on, my dominators? Rico Garcia here. This is going to be an amazing episode. Welcome to another public adjusting corner with our very own Carlos Machin, the claims machine. And in today's episode, we're going to be covering some case studies that he's put together. And it's a really great conversation because it's something that I truly genuinely believe in. I think that this is a great asset to add to your restoration company, to your mitigation company. Having a good network of people to work with is paramount. People that are going to make you look good, people that are going to make your customer feel comfortable and to actually put a smile on their face is extremely important throughout this tedious process of the insurance claim. And having a good quality public adjuster and good quality subs and other pros within the industry that fill in some of the gaps in the services that you have the ability to provide is extremely important. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about a couple of case studies that Carlos put together and is going to be sharing with you. And we're going to be talking about some of the benefits of working with a public adjuster so that you can actually determine whether or not bringing in a public adjuster makes sense for you in your business, and if it's going to help move the financial needle forward or eliminate some of the headaches throughout the process that you may be experiencing. So make sure that if you enjoy this episode, make sure that you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. And then if you're listening to this, drop us a quick review, or remember, call us on our Restoration Domination hotline, 678-TALK, and then the number 2, us. So 678-TALK, the number 2, us, and then just drop us a voicemail. Let us know your comments. Let us know your thoughts, and let us know if you have a public adjuster or a series of public adjusters that you've worked with in the past and what that's done for your business. We'd love to hear from you, and then we'll give you a shout out on the next public adjusting corner. Big shout out to Carlos Machin on this particular episode. It was tons of fun. I think you're going to enjoy it. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Welcome to the Restoration Domination Podcast, where you learn actionable advice that moves the needle and helps service-based businesses dominate. Here's your host, Rico Garcia Jr.
All right, guys, what is going on? Rico Garcia here. Really excited for this episode. As per usual, once a month, you know that we are joined by one of our experts. In this particular case, we are joined by Carlos Machin, who we lovingly call the claims machine from Policyholder Advocates, joining us in this month's Public Adjusting Corner. So yeah, Carlos, man, welcome back. How's everything going?
Good, man. Thanks, Rico. Thanks for having me. Hello, Restoration Domination Nation.
Yeah, let's go. So what we want to cover today, and I thought that would be really interesting, right? Because I obviously speak to a lot of restoration contractors, right? And restoration companies. And there's tons of different opinions about the benefits. Are there any benefits of working with a public adjuster? Some people are totally for it, and they see the benefits of it and the benefits that they as a company have, and the benefits that the clients receive also by being tapped into like their amazing network, right? Because again, having a good network of pros around you just totally elevates your game as well. And then others are just like, hey, you know what? I know I don't want to deal with a public adjuster. Public adjusters are just going to, dig into my money. There's zero benefit to it. Like we do water mitigation claims all the time. We get, 70, 80, 90%, 100% of our, total invoice and all of this stuff, right? And that may be the case, but what I wanted to go ahead and talk about today is really what are some of the benefits. And we are going to go over a couple of case studies. Carlos Machin, for those of you that don't know, is actually located hop, skip, and a jump away from where our restoration company is located in South Florida. He's right out of Boca Raton. So we've had the opportunity to, in real life, not just in the world of internet and the world of the podcasting, universe. We've actually done some real business with real checks that actually get deposited into real money that we could spend in real places, right? So, and, we've had some amazing experiences. Actually, all of them have been amazing experiences in one way or another. So I think that this would be some really cool stuff. We're going to go over a couple of case studies and then just kind of dig into some of the psychology of what we think are the pros and cons of working with a public adjuster. And if you're listening to this, should you, if you don't have a relationship built with a public adjuster, should this be something that you consider and that you decide to get into? So, Carlos, man, welcome once again to the show. Okay, let's just dive right in. Why should really a restoration contractor look at working with a public adjuster?
Rico, at the end of the day, look, as a public adjuster, I rely on experts. I'm able to handle the policy side of things. I'm able to discuss the claim with the insurance company. I'm able to handle it with the client and get them their money. But at the end of the day, the other two facets of a claims process that are very crucial to ensuring a happy customer, I feel like I'm in the middle, right? I'm in the middle of the process. The mitigation company generally, as long as they're only doing EMS or mold remediation, they're there in the beginning part of the stages of the insurance claim. So they're the front lines. They're just mitigating, cleaning stuff up, preventing further damage. So they're really at that forefront. Then I kind of step in. Then once I get the claim paid, well, who do we need? We need a contractor to put everything back. So without that synergy, what I call an elite team of professionals, the client's really not going to get the full package or the full deal of the service that we could provide. So by having individuals that are good at what they do and honest and able to help along the claims process and give me the supporting documents that I'm able to get that claim paid, well, it makes my job easier. And then we all look like a bunch of badasses that got this thing done quicker than normal, and the client's happy. The end result for me is always a happy client, as well as it's going to be a happy referral source. So as long as we're all working together properly and not stepping on each other's toes, and, I know, like you said, there's a lot of stigma about us dipping into EMS funds and things like that. I work a little bit differently than some others in the industry, and we can get into that a little bit after my little slideshow here that I want to go over the case studies. But it's really about the relationships that you have. I mean, we've built a relationship, you and I, on a business level that has allowed us to understand each other's roles and allow each other to execute our own roles without necessarily intermingling in our roles in the service that we're providing the client. So that's really where I think a lot of that comes in. And some of these case studies, we're going to go over a couple little different scenarios, one without a EMS company involvement, one with, and then one with a contractor, EMS, and the whole nine. So I have a little bit of everything there, and some really, generally it's going to be the same story on a lot of our claims, but these are great success stories that we're able to bring the insureds back to whole prior to a pre-loss. Back to a pre-loss condition with very little money out of pocket.
Right. So one thing that I want to highlight, and I think is extremely important, is communication and what communication looks like. Big part of working well with any other pro is to have a very open and candid conversation of what each individual's workflow looks like. Because again, everybody's a little bit different, right? Everybody uses different systems. Everybody uses a different CRM. Some people use Dropbox. Other people use Google Drive. Like there's a million different ways to share data. So one of the things that I talk about quite a bit, especially when I'm talking to public adjusters and things of that nature, is, hey, when you're dealing with a mitigation company, first of all, you got to vet the mitigation company. Like, that's my opinion. The public adjuster needs to vet the mitigation company and say, hey, what's your greed factor look like? Are you going to be holding,
and vice versa?
Right. And this goes both ways, right? Yeah. And typically I highlight both, but because again, just context of the conversation is from the mitigation standpoint is, how greedy are you? Are you going to hold up a claim for $1,000, right? How well are you documenting? Right? Because most mitigation companies document their loss, question is how well are you really documenting the loss? What kind of tech are you using? Are you using things like, for example, one of our sponsors, Company Cam? I'm a huge advocate for Company Cam, right? Why? Because even when you and I are doing files, if you're at a loss first and you're like, hey, Rico, I've got this thing, even before I show up to the job site, I already know what it looks like. I see when you were there, exactly what you saw, because you can share that entire timeline with me, or vice versa. Once I arrive and I'm like, hey, I already spoke to this client, and they're all for having a public adjuster on. Here's this file. Let me know what your initial thoughts are. Even before you speak to the client, sometimes you have that link, and now you get a bird's eye view of what's going on. So what kind of tech they're using is extremely important. And then also like file management. So one thing that we've done, and that I do with pretty much any either contractor, subcontractor, or any other pro in the industry, even other restoration companies that we do business with, is we use our tech stack. So for example, Company Cam being one of them. And then for communication, we also use Slack. We have a dedicated Slack channel. When Carlos, you're on one of the Slack channels, right? Which is the Restoration Dream Team Slack channel. So, using that, right now we have very fast access and easy communication pertaining to any one file. Above and beyond that, we've also then developed, a file sharing system to where if any one of us need anything pertaining to that one client, we have that there. In other words, maybe you collected the deck sheet, but I have the entire policy, or vice versa, right? Or instead of you hunting me down for an estimate, it's already uploaded in an automatic Google Drive folder that gets created the moment that a Slack signal gets sent. Like all of this is like automated, and now it provides an opportunity for us both to dump critical file information into one area that is not only going to help you, but then it's also going to help me as a restoration contractor, right? So communication is key. And one of the things that we've noticed is that is a lacking component when dealing with from pro to pro. And why is that? Like, at the end of the day, like if you want to have a system that flows really, really well, you need to be able to have a communication with whoever the other pro is. And then also, be willing to change a little bit in order to forge that relationship and make things happen a lot faster, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
No, absolutely. Once, I was for a while that old school paper mentality, paper folders. I mean, I still do them, they're still here. There is a level of paper that we still receive and we have to, but generally now everything is electronic at my fingertips, anywhere on site, at the office, whatever it may be. I have connection to any of the documents that either you're providing us or we need to provide you. And it makes it so much easier. I don't have to say, oh, I'll remember when I get back to the office, or I do it right then and there. Boom, knock it out. And it's there. It's not impeding the process. The biggest thing that like you said, I've seen with prior mitigation companies that we've worked with, and in my previous experience, even in the insurance carrier side, is that timing, that delay, and that communication. And without having that, look, everybody today's day and age, it has to happen right now. That everybody lives in that mentality. And if we're not, then we're slowing down the claims process. And we already know that the claims process is a staggeringly long situation for no reason. But if we're able to provide everything to the carrier that much faster, that much quicker, these things are going to get paid faster. You're going to get money in your pocket faster. You're going to be able to pay your guys quicker. So that's how we've been doing it. And yeah, it's been working great with Company Cam. I'm a firm believer of that application, as well as a few others. And our CRMs have been working really well that we've taken on. And it's helped the whole process. Even if we get to a point, there's some files that we can, as a public adjuster, we just push it and push it and push it, and it has to go to litigation. Well, even taking it to litigation, it's become that much quicker. I just share the file with the attorney, whatever it may be, whoever the insured ends up hiring. Boom. There's no lag. I don't have to mail off, 100 pages somewhere. It's quick.
Or you forget easy. A document, or you forget an email, or you forget an estimate, and they have to hunt everything down. Like just having that process, like you always have to like hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, right? So in that process, as you're documenting, and for all of us restoration contractors out there, like we all know, like your documentation is key. So if for whatever reason, you forgot to send a updated photo report, or if you forgot to send, the dry logs, or you forgot to send this or that. Like, these are emails sometimes get lost in a thread. There's a lot to keep track of. Whereas if you have a communication system that's already there, and you know that there's a public adjuster on file, this is an amazing way just to share information. You know what it should probably do? If you guys shoot us a call at 678-TALK, the number 2, 678-TALK-2-US. Let us know if you want like a training on our tech stack, on communication and file sharing. And, I'll probably put something together. So if you guys shoot us a call at 678-TALK-2-US, leave us a voicemail and say, just tell us, I'm interested in the tech stack. And if we get a few of those calls, I'll actually go ahead and I'll put together a free training and send you guys out a link. Just make sure that you send us your email address, leave it in the voicemail. And I'll do that for you guys, for Restoration Dominators out there. And I think that'll be a real good value play. But yeah, so moving on, let's talk about some of these case studies that you have, and kind of to dive in, and then we'll start pulling them apart and see what happened there.
Yeah, definitely. So I titled this little presentation, "The Benefits of Working with a Public Adjuster." How PAs, contractors, EMS companies creating an elite team for your clients. Because again, at the end of the day, it's all about the clients, right? The way I look at every single claim is, yes, I want to make money. That's what we're here for. However, I'm also looking at it as a marketing standpoint, that how am I going to make sure that this claim goes properly and smoothly, so that way they're referring me everybody they know, and the contractor, the EMS company. So that's how I handle every single loss. One of the, just to jump out, you can find us at Instagram and Facebook at Get Your Claim Paid, or getyourclaimpaid.com. The first case study I'm going to do, which was a very controversial topic, a lot of people were like, well, we can't get these things taken care of, but we did. And actually, this is one that you and I did, Rico. This was a tropical storm Ida claim up in the Wellington area of Wellington, South Florida. It was a shingle roof. There was definitely damage there, with resulting water damage to the interior of the home. We had 3 rooms that were affected, one that had mold in a bedroom, and one bathroom. So we went ahead. It was a previous client of mine that called us up, and we went out there, inspected the loss, took together all the information, all the photos, got it in company cam, referred it over to Rico. We submitted the loss to the carrier approximately about 1 month after the storm is when they started noticing the issues. So it wasn't a delay of notice. I believe we did get a delay of notice letter, but that was nor here nor there. We enlisted our trusted EMS professional to tarp and mitigate the interior damages. And that's when Rico stepped in and did his thing, which, above and beyond the documentation, the whole 9 yards. So we had the field adjuster come out and inspect it. I can't remember if you were on site or not. Yes, you were, because you had to pull the tarp. So the carrier adjuster's on the roof, and he's seeing the damages to the shingles. He's marking up shingles, and seems like we're in agreement with everything. We go to the interior. We started looking at the interior, and he kind of then puts this pause and this poise of, well, I can't really see any damage. I'm like, well, it's clearly here. Rico has thermal imaging showing water has entered and compromised the drywall, compromised the bathroom that would result in vanity and shower damage, blah, blah, blah. Nope, I can't see it. I can't pay for it. I said, okay, no problem. We'll go ahead and deal with it. Let's see how this goes. So a few weeks later, I believe it was a month later, they actually opened coverage. So they opened coverage, or they told us we were opening coverage. We're pending the actual estimate. Rico did his thing. He dried out the property, got the mold tested. Mold remediation was completed. We actually then finally got the assessment from the insurance company that only included the roof replacement for about $25,000, which was shortchanged, but at least they opened coverage. When we were questioning, well, why hasn't the EMS been taken care of? They didn't pay the tarp. They didn't pay the mold. They were completely ignoring it. So we followed back up. Rico did his thing, supplied all the documentation. I followed back up, supplied all of our documentation, as well as Rico's again. After some back and forth, they actually opened up coverage because of the efforts on both sides and the documentation from Rico and Ecotech. And we made sure we went back and made sure that our estimate did not have any overlapping repairs,
which is an important factor, right? Just making sure that there are no overlaps, and that there's no double dipping, because sometimes that happens a lot. But the way that to avoid that, once again, is going back into an actual communication line and saying, hey, this is what's on my estimate. You get to see as a public adjuster, oh, okay, line items, this is what's included. Let me not include this on our side, right? So just having that open line of communication. I think with this particular case study, what they did was number one, just like, and everybody knows this, what you really care about is opening coverage. Like, make sure that coverage is open for $1. It is good.
$1.
Just $1. Open up coverage. That's, a good portion of the battle right there. But on this particular one, they addressed the roof. So they understood that the roof was damaged, whatever, short change, but who cares? Coverage is open. But then they were basically denying or turning a blind eye to the interior damages, right? But again, based on documentation, based on the pictures, the files, the way that they were outlined, what that ended up happening was that decision was then overturned. Coverage was then established on the interior. So we ended up getting, interior as well as the roof replacement and all of that jazz.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing that I want to touch on as well with the overlapping, these insurance carriers are looking for anything and everything they can to throw up the red flag of fraud or that we're exacerbating claims and things like that. So if that communication is, you provided the invoice from you guys, the EMS company, I have a copy of that. I'm able to review it. I can make sure that, hey, no, I'm not double dipping. Maybe in the beginning because your guys' stuff wasn't submitted yet, but hey, I'll go ahead and revise that. Absolutely. I'm not asking for things twice. I want it to be paid and paid properly. So once they saw that we weren't, trying to just completely take advantage, we went ahead and we submitted a finalized sworn proof of loss statement. And it was about $56,000 for the rebuild. That had nothing to do with anything that you did, mold, tarping, just completely putting the house back in order, inclusive of the roof. So they went ahead and they kicked the estimate back to the independent adjuster and all our documentation. He called me up. He kind of reviewed what I had going on. And he said that he's coming in about $46,000. I said, okay, well, we're pretty close. Go ahead and, submit your stuff to the desk adjuster. We know that they have to review it and whatnot. Follow back up with the desk adjuster a week or two later, and she had everything. And it was a quick conversation. We were at $56,000. They were at $46,000. We just settled right then in the middle. I know a lot of people don't like to split the baby. I really didn't look at it as splitting the baby. My clients were ecstatic about that number because they were able to get everything done. EMS was fully paid. Mold was fully paid. We got a total gross payment of $50,000 before the insurance deductible. It came out to an 89.3% settlement of our initial demand.
Right.
I mean, guys, I know guys are settled at 50%. And that's just, I'm sorry, if you write a correct estimate, you should be getting 80, 90, 100% of your estimate all day long.
Right.
So
and on the mitigation
this
side,
is one of those cases.
And on the mitigation side, the tarping, the water, including the mold, like that turnaround time was stupid fast. Like this was not, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. Like this was a matter of weeks. Like we were able to,
I think it was 35 days.
Yeah. Like something like that. Like, it was extremely fast. We weren't sitting on invoices. We weren't, these are the type of things like when they're documented properly. And you got to remember, like you've got two people now, right? Two totally separate entities that are kind of trying to move everything forward. You've got the public adjuster on his end. Like, yeah, he's not really like jamming me up and I'm not jamming him up. But what we're both doing is we're constantly calling about this file. And we've had instances where I'm like, well, you haven't been able to get in contact with the desk adjuster or the claims examiner. But I'm like, on our game and I get them on the phone and I'm like, I'm sending you a text message right then and there. I'm like, hey, by the way, I just got, this one guy on the phone. You're like, you've been trying to reach him for, call him right now. Or sometimes we'll even like tap people in. Right. So, having that camaraderie of trying to move the claim forward is really important throughout this entire process. So, but yeah, just wanted to go ahead and highlight that. So, because we know that there's a lot of, restoration contractors out there was like, well, probably took you 6 months to get the roof paid. Yeah. Okay, fine. Forget about that portion, but your portion, the water mitt, the mold, the tarp, whatever it was that you did, that portion typically is the first thing to get paid out, right?
Yeah, on this one, you guys were paid out first before the roof and everything, because they delayed the payments and they supposedly lost checks. And the other thing I'll highlight too is I'm not going to name carrier names, but every one of us that works here in Florida, this was one of the ones that you go and sign and you're going for a fight,
right?
And it was the smoothest process that I've ever had with this carrier. And again, I think it just comes down to showing that the synergy, the ability to document everything and provide legitimate, accurate estimates and the photos and the thermals and everything. They can't argue it. If they can't argue it, they have to pay it. So needless to say, these clients were ecstatic. They got their roof taken care of. The mold was all cleaned up. Their bathroom and their bedroom was put back together as if nothing ever happened.
Right.
And that's the beautiful thing. That client is going to be a client for life for either myself or for Rico, because we got the most important part of their property resolved, the roof. I mean, the roof and kitchen are the two most important claims, I think. Obviously, bathrooms are probably second place right after that. But the roof protects the house from almost everything. So the fact that we got that taken care of so quickly, they were amazed. Now, there was some issues with the lien holder afterwards, but that's pretty much out of our hands, and we try to assist the clients and everything.
That's outside of the scope of what you have the ability to do. Exactly. So, the main thing is like, again, even as a pro, what that does for you and for your network, right? Because now to have someone trusted to work with is extremely important, right? To fill in the gaps in what you have the ability to provide to that customer. So just because you're a water mitigation company or you're a full scale restoration company that's even doing the rebuilds, there's something to be said about, someone who understands policy, someone who has the legal ability to speak about policy and coverage. And there's a lot of debate in the industry about, well, we're not really talking policy, but I'm adjusting, for my cool. Why even put yourself in that position to where someone can make the claim that you are adjusting without a license? Like, even though you are battling your invoice, even though you are battling for services rendered, like at the end of the day, the client doesn't necessarily always know how to navigate these waters. So for you as a contractor to try to coach and or guide the customer to have a conversation on your behalf on why to get their money, like that's not something that you want to do. Whereas bringing a public adjuster now has the ability to talk actual policy. There could be instances where if someone tells me on the phone on a particular claim, well, that's not covered under policy. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't speak policy language, but hold on real quick. Let's get the public adjuster on this file, and you guys can have that conversation. Hold on. And you just tap in your public adjuster, who now has the ability to speak policy, to speak language, right? And all of a sudden, this process is totally different. So in the eyes of the customer, what you've done is you've brought an A team to the equation. And once your portion of it is done, your water mitigation, mold remediation, your tarping, whatever it is that you're doing on the front end, once that's done, and of course, I'm more than positive that each and every single one of you dominators out there are just crushing the game when it comes down to that, and you're doing your job well. But then if the rest of the process is choppy, if it's uncomfortable, if it's unpleasant, because there was a missing player there that could have made the process that much smoother, all of a sudden you kind of start getting a bad taste. The customer starts getting a bad taste about the entire process. And then, of course, who do they blame? They blame the mitigation company, right? Or they blame the first person that was on site. So this is like a great way also to, if you want to have cheerleaders as clients, to kind of, smooth everything over, and it makes sure that they're getting the most that they possibly can from the carrier, which is obviously one of the most important
look,
things.
Rico, at the end of the day, what I tell most of my clients, all my clients, I should say, every single one of them, I'm here. Majority of U.S. citizens in their entire life will have one homeowner's insurance claim if they're lucky. South Florida, we're a whole different ballgame. We're, multiple storms a year and things like that. We're a little bit more used to it. But majority of people, even here in Florida, they don't know what a public adjuster is. They don't know what mitigation companies are. I've been in so many recorded statements that they're asked, did you have a mitigation company? No. Yeah, the people that drive the house with the fans and that's what they are. They have no clue of the lingo. So I tell my clients, I'm here to alleviate any headaches and the distraught that comes from handling a claim with the big bad insurance companies. I'm taking that headache away from you. I'm running the show. I'm your liaison. I'm your custodian of the claim. Well, guess what? I'm doing the same thing for you guys. I'm alleviating some of the headaches and those conversations, those weird conversations that you might have to have with a client. You don't have to have that anymore. I'm the one taking care of that. I'm the one talking the policy and guiding that ship so they understand that, hey, you have an insurance question? Call me. Don't call the mitigation company. Don't call the contractor. They're the guys physically doing the work. They're doing the brunt. They're the most important there. Let me handle that so they can keep on doing their job. And that's a big thing as well. The other thing too, we've done it on many claims. I do it with the insurance carrier adjusters as well. One of the big things a lot of guys don't care to do, or it's a task that they don't want to, or a cost of having the Xactimate software. Well, guess what? I do all the measurements on the house. I can provide an ESX for you, whoever you use to write your estimate or your invoice. So that also cuts down some time, cuts down some cost. And it's not something I'm charging or anything like that. But guess what? Also, it keeps everything the same throughout the process. My measurements are your measurements, the insurance carrier's measurements. There's no questioning that now. That variable is put out. Now we can get to the nitty gritty of what's there, what's not there, and what kind of remediation that needs to be done per industry standards and so forth. So I don't know how many guys are getting that with the public adjusters that they work with, but that's something I do for every single one of my files. So, and I'm also a nitpicker about estimating from my old days at the big blue carriers. So, but yeah,
right. So that's case study number one. Case study number one was obviously a really good one, that we had the pleasure of working on together. Yep. What other case studies do you have there that you wanted to go over?
This was a cool, interesting one. It actually was a first for me in the industry, but it all worked out very well. So this actually came as a referral from a neighbor in the neighborhood that saw me there working on a bunch of Irma claims here in West Boca in a higher end neighborhood, tile roof. The whole neighborhood sustained damage and bunch of roofs were being replaced. So I get called out to this house. I inspect the property. There was definitely tile damage up there, water damage to a couple of rooms, ceilings, but the majority of the damage was in the sunroom. That water came through the roof, the ceiling, the walls, the window, and damaged the walls and the flooring. It had laminate flooring. This laminate flooring was throughout the whole house. However, in the sunroom, they had T-molding at the threshold. So you know what the carriers do. Nope, I stop at the threshold. Well, this was an interesting situation because all the doors that led back into the house in the sunroom were all French doors. So when you close the doors, you don't see the threshold. And everything was installed as if no thresholds were there. So it, as a line of sight situation, the floors were continuous to me. So we wrote up let me step back. So the insured called in the claim shortly after the storm. So there was no delay of notice there. What the delay was that he didn't call me for 2.5 years after the last time he talked to the insurance carrier. So they paid about, I think, there was $2,000 after a $10,000 estimate, give or take a few bucks. So they only allowed for the one room to be repaired, and for the flooring, and a minor roof repair. So we had a minor roof repair of I think 15, 20 tiles or something ridiculous. So fast forward 2.5 years, Kai hires us. We go and do the full inspection. Try to utilize the policy language. Like I said, in the line of sight situation, accurate repairs, the repair methods of the roof were not achievable because it was a discontinued tile. all that good stuff. We kind of all compiled that, put our narrative together. Our estimate was $202,000. Huge, right? So whatever. It was a 3,500 square foot home, flooring, baseboards, shoe molding, all this good stuff. So it was substantiated with all our photos and all of our documentation. Being that it was 2.5 years, we didn't bring in a mitigation company because there's nothing to dry out. There was no visible mold. And, the estimate was so high already that we felt that it would probably just make things worse. But if he would have called us in earlier, when he first filed the claim or the mitigation, we could have probably got this claim paid a lot sooner. But he had some family issues and things like that, life that got in the way. And that's why he never followed back up with it. So they reject our estimate immediately because of the amount. Usually anything over 50 to 100,000, they're getting really, antsy over 100K. They reject it instantly. So they send out an inspector, another independent adjuster, and they also send out an engineer, but they didn't tell me about the engineer until I arrived at the property for the inspection. So we go through everything. Again, I provide them my ESX. I provide them all my photos. Everything's going smooth, whatever. They understand coverage was open. This is not really, I don't know why they sent them the engineer, to be honest with you, but coverage was open. So it was pretty much a scope dispute. So a few months go by. I'm following up with the carrier every couple of weeks. And all of a sudden I get a notice for a demand of an EUO. And for those that you don't know, an examination under oath is a pretty serious deposition. It's just a upper scale. I don't want to say upper scale, but a more intense deposition. Basically, when you get called in for an examination under oath, or the insured, or the public adjuster, or anybody now that's involved in the claim can really be called for one. It's basically that they're raising the red flag of fraud, and they were trying to say I'm fraudulently misrepresentation of the claim because of my estimate, just because of the mere amount. They didn't want to pay it. So the EUOs go through for the insured. They put me through my EUO. They dissect my estimate, dissect my history of what I did and how I did things. And 2.5, 3 hours, I think we spent on this thing. So my estimate was 370 different line items. They found 3 line items, which were just a inputting error. So the attorney just got off flustered and said, yeah, okay, see, I found this and found how much more are we going to find? She gets all giddy and thinks that we're going to find, $100,000 worth of discrepancies. No, it came down to $199,000 from 202. So I only had $3,000 discrepancy. I mean, guys, not for nothing. That's on a claim that size. A lot of things can happen with a couple of wrong clicks. So she was astonished that I was willing to change it. I said, listen, I'm human. We make errors, and absolutely, I'll make the changes. Let's go ahead and take care of it, and I'll send you that updated estimate. So we submitted it within an hour of the EUO completion. Really quick, before I keep on going, guys, if you ever get called in for one of these, please hire an attorney to represent you during the EUO. You do not want to go into one of these things without representation, because this could be used in court. It could be used against you. So you want to make sure you have someone representing you to make sure that they're controlling the questioning and not letting you incriminate yourself for any reason. Not that any of you guys are, but these are the things that they always are trying to establish. So that being said, we revised that estimate, like I said, $199,000. A few weeks later, we start having some negotiations. Well, we reached a final settlement because the client was content in the numbers and the repairs. $150,000 new money that we got our client, ending result of 75.4% settlement of our revised demand. So another, happy ending, a little bit less than I think we should have settled, but the client is the boss, and they were happy. They got the roof done. They got the flooring done. It's just, again, it's all about documentation. I think my photo log on that claim was almost 300 photos. Documentation of the roof, the tiles not being discontinued, no longer in production, all those things, as well as our examination under oaths, lined up, from what I understand from the attorney, lined up perfectly. There was nothing to be hidden. There was no lies. It was what it was. So they ended up paying another $150,000. So that was a nice a very nice ending as well. Again, I think it could have been done a lot sooner, a lot earlier, had the insured hired a mitigation company or hired myself sooner, so that we could have brought the right people in to get it all taken care of a lot sooner than 2.5 years. So, I wanted to bring this one up because it's something that I think was lacking in the claim process that we could have used professionals had it been a different timing. So, but again, also, if you get involved in something this late in the game, we still have our avenues to be able to get the claim paid for.
Right. Which is ultimately what you want, right? Because again, how many times, even as a mitigation company, you get called out to a claim that, is a year old sometimes. And you're like, really? I mean, what do you want us to do with this again? Like, you want us to, yeah. So all of this, and it doesn't mean that it can't get paid. Most certainly can get paid. But, again, as a mitigation company who's rolling solo, you're going to reach a lot more resistance than by having, a public adjuster that you can go ahead and bring into the game, give the client some comfort, give them some confidence in the process, and really take that weight off of your shoulders, take off the weight off of the client's shoulders, and ultimately it's a better situation overall. So that's case study number 2. I think you got a few more that we could share, right?
I got one more because this one I think is just the cream of the crop. And we don't have an end result to this one because it's actually still fluid. But we have made some major strides in this loss. And it happens to be another one that you and I are working on. So again, I'm not going to name names at all because I don't think it's correct to do so. But this is a loss down in Plantation area of South Florida as well. The insureds had a refrigerator line that ruptured while they were gone for, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks at away to their other home.
Now I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. Yep. So this one was a disaster. So they get home, water's flowing out the front door, out the garage, 3 inches of water almost throughout a 3,500 square foot home. Beautiful home, all nice high end finishes and all that good stuff.
By the way, let me just insert here: mitigation, remediation, all of that stuff on the front end has already been done and settled with on this particular claim. So
yeah, I'm going to get into that nitty gritty in a second here. Yeah, because those numbers are staggering, what you're about to see. So the insured immediately files a claim. They have a long history with the insurance company. They are hoping that they're got their best interest in mind. Immediately, the carrier dispatches one of their program vendors, which we all have our discrepancies on, on how good they are or not good they are. I think there's a lot of great ones out there, and sometimes it's a situation like this, it just was the stars didn't align properly, in my opinion. But needless to say,
there were no stars on this one. There were no stars.
So the vendor was there for 5 weeks by the time I got there. And when the day that I got there, they were still pulling the last bedroom carpet, wet carpet, soaking wet carpet out of that house. Barely any fans. I think they may have had 1 fan, maybe 2 dehumidifiers in the property. None of the furniture was blocked up on pads. And
this is not a small company.
No, this is a big vendor.
This is a big franchise that anybody would recognize.
Absolutely.
They're the ones that were on this, that was on the vendor side that they had sent out.
Exactly. They basically had 1 technician for the 5 weeks doing mitigation and 1 technician trying to pack up contents. And we found boxes packed on wet carpet, on wet flooring, mismatched, mislabeled, half empty, not packed. It was just, again, total disaster. I mean, exactly what not to do on a loss as a mitigation company, in my opinion. Again, I think, also South Florida, we're having staffing issues and labor is a problem. So I think that has something to do with it, and spread too thin. Also, disclaimer, these carriers don't give them authorization for certain things. And this might have been it, because I couldn't get a hold of the adjuster for 2 weeks. 2 weeks go by. I send in my letter of rep, my contract. demanding to speak to somebody, call to speak to a supervisor, 2 weeks to talk to somebody. So it wasn't just the mitigation company. The carrier also dropped the ball. They had it sounded like a very new adjuster. I never spoke with them. They ended up reassigning it to another adjuster who was very well seasoned, set up an appointment shortly after that to come out to the property to start doing the process and whatnot. They were basically trying to handle this claim via the vendor. So that's another mistake. So we'll just keep on tacking them. I'm going to lose track of it real fast. So this claim came to us as a referral from a really good contractor that we deal with down in the South, that region of South Florida. And we've worked very well together as well on other losses. So this is kind of bringing everybody together on this loss. So we got a contractor referring us to client. I get in there, evaluate the situation, agree with the client, sign up with us. They agree with me. The vendor is not doing it. They try to give them as much time as possible, and they're just flustered. So we threw them off the job that day. Immediately called Rico in. Rico came in, did his thing, started setting up. We got a pack on the go as well. I'm not sure we can give them the shout out, but they were amazing.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna go ahead. I figured you were gonna mention them at some point. If not, I was definitely gonna give them a big shout out. For those of you contractors here in South Florida, make sure that you reach out if you ever need a really great pack out company, someone that we've done business with in the past, that we've certainly vetted, that just do spectacular work when it comes down to the pack out contents, like the whole shabam. Big shout out to Nick Ford with Pack on the Go. Go ahead and reach out to them. Pack on the Go. Actually, we'll probably put a link to their company website somewhere in the video description as well as in the show notes. But make sure that you check them out because they do spectacular work, very, very fast, very responsive, and that's what they do. So again, just goes to show having a great network of people that you can count on really goes ahead and enhances the overall customer experience, because the customer was thrilled once all of the A-team players were involved. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, and that's the big thing too. I think there's some EMS companies that get caught up on, well, I can do it all, this and that. Guys, these guys are amazing. And I know there's other companies out there too. This is just the one that I've recently had the most success with. And they came in, they repacked every single box that this company packed up. I almost let it slip there. They evaluated everything. They packed everything. You should have let it slip.
It would have been great to just like beep it out.
They packed it up. They're able to restore certain things. They're going to restore it. They're going to give you a list. They give you a online login where you can literally see the inventory, know what boxes, what vaults are where. Absolutely top notch. They do the storage as well. Super made everything easier, as well as the biggest thing, also took everything out of the way so Rico can get started with his job. And that really is what should have happened initially with this other vendor, but they didn't. I don't know why. But again, so all these players, like Rico was saying, in this claim has made this claim turn around on its head and just take a look at these staggering numbers that we're about to talk about. So after I got there, I think it was the week after the contents got packed out, EMS took about 10 days to finish, when these guys were at 5 weeks and not even anywhere. And some people can say, well, they started with junk. So, Rico really pretty much had to start over for everything. We had multiple inspections with the carrier, back and forth. Right now, like I said, we're still ongoing with this case. However, EMS and mold payout were done almost immediately. Over $40,000 that they got hit for because of the extent of damages. Rico was pulling walls.
You're letting people know our numbers, bro. That's fine. Let's go.
I mean, it's a combination.
No, that's good. It was. So yeah, this was an interesting claim. And that was just that. And then you also had the pack out company.
Yeah. So here we go. Contents manipulation and storage up until I think a few months. There's still storage. I mean, guys, the whole house was affected. It was completely gutted.
This place was packed.
Gutted. 3-foot flood cut, not 2-foot flood cut. 3-foot flood cut around the entire property. Kitchen cabinets, every single bathroom, completely unlivable. So we're at 57,000 right now for that. We're at 250 grand for the rebuild, and we're at like 25,000 for ALE. We're expecting this loss to be probably settled somewhere in the 425, 450 range when we're all said and done with ALE, its contents, storage, and it could have probably been maybe $100,000 if this mitigation company, this vendor, would have done what they needed to do. Would you not agree,
Yep.
Rico? I mean, it could have been
100%.
minimalized
tremendously.
Yeah.
Huge.
So the reason I bring this up is that you have an insurance carrier that trusts this vendor. Again, all circumstances, we don't know what exactly caused this, and I'm not going to try to make any, accusations. However, this happens way too often. So they didn't have the professionals lined up the way they thought they did. But us having them together that way was able to get the insurance out of the property, get everything taken care of, remediation done. Now the payment's already on its way for the $250,000, and they're already starting the rebuild process. We're not wasting any time. It's going to take 5-6 months because materials are on back order, kitchen cabinets, this, that, the other. That's stuff that we can't handle, we can't control right now. But at the same point, they have funds in hand. No one's waiting on anything, and everything is moving along as needed. And again, could have been resolved way earlier if the right people were put in place. And unfortunately, the carrier failed to do so, and that's why we're here. But we were able to, not only talk about policy, but we're able to throw one of their vendors off the job because the lack of competency of doing the job. So,
right.
This one is I think a big success story in the sense of how we turned a really, really bad situation into a good situation where the insureds are, again, ecstatic. They're comfortable with the process. They know how long they're going to be out of their house. They have no problems with it. So we're going to get it settled here hopefully next month or two. And once we finalize some content, and then that's it. So I think the three were good, different variations of different type of people involved in contractors and whatnot. And I hope it brings a little bit of light to you guys on the, not necessarily the need, but the benefit that a public adjuster being involved in your losses and how it makes you look with the client at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's for pros, that should be like a really important takeaway. Make sure that you associate with people and with pros that are going to handle things fast, efficiently, effectively, and that are going to end up putting a smile on your customer's face, because that reflects on you. When you make a recommendation with confidence that you have the right player for that slot that can help this entire process go that much smoother, ultimately the client is going to associate that experience with you, with your professionalism, and with your ability to actually deliver results for what they want, which ultimately leads to more referrals, to more business, to better reviews, and ultimately a much bigger and thriving business, which is ultimately what we all want.
Yeah. And look, again, I'll say it one last time too, is that I feel like there's a stigma on both sides that we know about. We don't have to beat a dead horse, but it's more of, why do you guys need us? And it's more, I need you guys. I rely as a public adjuster on experts. You guys are expert in your field. No different as a contractor, whether it be mold, GC, EMS. You guys are plumbers. You guys are the experts. Without you, I can't do my job. So, it's really, if you look at it that way, that's why I'm looking for more water and mold restoration companies that do the work like we do, so that all these claims can get paid. I really, I won't go into some other stories on the carrier side, but this is the reason why I became a public adjuster, is that last case study, things like that should have been taken care of in the beginning. But now I can do that with all the assistance from guys like you, guys like, our mold testers, contractors, making sure that we're making sure all the building codes are being achieved and things like that. We're getting them paid, and no one's being shorted. And
right.
I don't know if you want to get into the money aspects that we kind of talked about the other day, but look, guys, I mean, as a public adjuster, technically, the state of Florida, our contract, we're entitled to whatever our contractual fees are, anything that gets paid on the claim. And that's where guys get, hung up.
Yeah, there's a big divide there. There's a big misunderstanding about what's possible, because a lot of mitigation companies and mold remediation companies are like, hey, look, I'm like basically first on site, or whatever the case may be, or just because I'm getting this phone call from the public adjuster, like on mold, most cases for residential mold, anyways, you've got a $10,000 cap. It's like, okay, well, there's not a whole lot of skin in that game, right? Because you can blow through a $10,000 mold remediation project like fast, ridiculously fast. Everybody knows that. And then the mitigation, they're like, hey, look, I'm a pro. Like, I know how many fans, I've got the formulas. There's really no reason for me to, I've settled tons and tons of these. Like, why do I really need a public adjuster, right? And the companies, and of course, we're not talking about full scale restoration companies that take it all the way to the end and also do the reconstruction and all of that stuff. But for those companies that are only doing the emergency water mit, or only doing the mold, or a combination thereof, the initial thought process is, oh, well, the public adjuster is just going to take my money, right? Take a portion of my money. And there's no reason for me to give away, 10, 15, 20%, whatever their contract fee is. But that's just not always the case, right? This is where, again, always go back to stage one. Are you communicating with the people that you're looking to do business with? And what's the end result? If you're dealing, and this is why I always talk about the greed factor, right? There has to be a conversation where you're not going to blatantly ask somebody, hey, are you a greedy guy? Like, you're probably not going to ask that, but you are going to gauge what their greed factor is. If what they think is important is to get $500 or $1,000 for an emergency mitigation off of your invoice, or if they see the value in a long-lasting, well-established relationship that ultimately leads to happier customers that lead to better reviews, better referrals, et cetera, and that back and forth of business that you could potentially have. Those elements are what should be most important, not the, small little fee that you would make off of a $10,000 mold remediation claim, right?
I've always had the firm belief in the multiple businesses I've been involved in over the years that you don't get rich off of one claim or client or job. You get rich off of many, right?
Right.
So it's more about, and I'm not saying that we have to just do volume business, and that's not how I do business, but yeah, I don't trip over pennies. So for me, it's more like, let's establish this business relationship. If you want to offer me that as a thank you because I'm bringing you the claim, well, that's a conversation we just have to have. And the AOB changes, we can get into that if you want to, but there's a lot of changes that may require, we may help you a little bit more to get paid faster rather than just flipping it into an attorney or whatnot. But that being said too, yeah, I chalk it up to a marketing cost in my mind. Right. So, yeah. Oh, I could have gotten $500 or $1,000 off of your mold, whatever the number may be. Well, I may not get a referral from you again, or I might only get 2 a year. But if I'm just, hey, I'll make my money on my end, you make your money on your end, we work together, get these things done faster, and you're going to refer me, I'm going to refer you, and it's going to keep going back and forth. I guarantee you sit down and do the math, it's going to pay a lot more in the long run by 100%. Just everybody staying in their lane.
100%, because and again, a lot you see this this kind of a system where there's just sheer money involved that go back and forth with plumbers in the industry, and there's a lot of people in the mitigation and mold remediation side of things that teach other restoration companies how to pitch plumbers, and it's first of all, it's very uncreative, and it's all based on a very shallow style relationship, which is based primarily on, hey, I'm willing to pay you X amount of dollars for a lead. That's really what it boils down to. Well, what happens is that's like pretty much everything your relationship is built on, right? And the moment that somebody else jumps in and they're a little bit more dynamic, or they're a little bit more likable, or they're offering a little bit more money, whatever that dynamic looks like, well, guess what? You just lost a referral source, which, by the way, was costing you an exuberant amount of money when you tally everything up. So it's a very shallow style relationship. Whereas if you build a relationship based on how well you have vetted the pro that you're bringing on, right? Almost as if it was a position for your company, and vice versa, because they should be doing the exact same thing to you. And you also, as a side note, as a contractor, you should be developing systems in your company on how you want documentation to flow, and just have those open conversations with any new vendors that you're potentially looking to bring on, any new subs, whatever the case may be, right? And just get them used to whatever your system is, and also have some flexibility and understand that other people have really great systems, and be open to those systems as well, because you might pick up a thing or two. So like, for example, like with our estimator, we do the exact same thing. Sometimes we use an amazing estimator. Sometimes they just go out and they estimate the projects for us because, again, it's more cost effective, it's faster, it's more efficient. They go out and guess what they do? They drop it in the same file where everything else lives and everybody has access to. And there's tons of different, tech stacks that you can use to facilitate this and just make it, such an amazing process. So, there's tons of good things to be said there.
Absolutely. I agree, man. It's the greed factor, and that's in any line of work, and everybody wants a little something for just trying to help you out, and it's really no one ever helping out. But again, if it goes both ways, I think you build that relationship. There's really no need for anybody to feel that someone's taking advantage of each other. It should be growth, and again, the client. At the end of the day, it should be all about the client, and that's really what it is. And if that's gonna slow down the process, or you're getting because you don't want to pay me for whatever it may be, like, to me, again, for a couple $100, $1,000. It's not worth it. Yeah. It's not worth it to me whatsoever.
Exactly. So with that, Restoration Dominators, this was the latest edition of the Public Adjusting Corner. Shared some amazing case studies. Look at your business, look at your relationships, look at the referral sources that you have, look at who you could be a resource for, and more importantly, just keep the customer in mind, right? Is this going to be bringing someone on like Carlos Machin, the claims machine, or your local public adjuster that you could forge a relationship with? Can this be an asset for you? Can this be a tool that you use throughout your sales presentation? And by the way, just because you're a water mitt company or a mold remediation company does not mean you don't have a sales presentation, because every time you say, hello, I'm here to help you, that's a sales presentation. So a public adjuster, for me personally, I've used them for effective cash flow. And you're like, wait, what does cash flow have to do with claims? Well, just by instilling enough confidence in a customer that I'm bringing in a player that can get them fully indemnified, guess what that does? Now this gives you an opportunity to ask for a cash order. So, and just that one little thing can go ahead and also help your cash flow. So again, there's tons of different ways that you can forge these really good relationships. And the point is, we think that these case studies might show you some of that value, get you those better clients, get you those better reviews, and take it from there. And as per usual, I'm going to leave Carlos Machin's links in the video description below, as well as in the show notes. And always be hustling, hack, and dominate. Let's go.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, your #1 resource for tips, tricks, and hacks to help your business grow. Subscribe to our channel and follow us for more Restoration Domination. And follow our host at Rico Garcia Jr. on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.